Now this is part 2 of the Evil Twin project. And we've been waiting. We buffed out these parts on part 1. Did a little repairs to some of the tabs and some of the things that needed to be updated. But we were waiting patiently for a date. It was above freezing to do the swap of the parts. And that looks like that might be today. You never know here though. It could just turn around and be below freezing again. Should be a nice day today. Now this is 35-year-old paintwork, and it just buffed out better than I could have ever expected. But I know for a fact these bikes made in this era do not have giant amounts of clear on them, so I was very careful, and I made a separate video of buffing out this old paint because you didn't want to go through and just grind off all the paint. That's the problem. And that's very typical of bikes, and I've done a lot of them from this era. Now the first step on this is going to be, and I always stored the bike all the years it was in storage, this bike anyway. I filled the gas tank with gas. Well, that gas is 4 or 5, maybe older. So when I brought the bike down into the cellar, of course I took out all the gas. I don't want any gas inside the house. So now the first thing I have to do here, and I'm going to do this momentarily, I'm going to take this up to the gas station and put just enough gas in it that I can drive the bike up and fill the tank. This way, when I put the tank on and off, what's nice about doing it that way, the tank doesn't weigh 50 pounds. 2 gallons, 1.5 gallons is plenty. So here's one of the unique things that I have to remember as I'm going to take this into the car and bring it up to the gas station. Unlike, this is not parts from my original bike, these are the parts from the bike I bought in Philadelphia. So this bike, for whatever reason, who knows, maybe this bike was made from parts, has 3 different keys: ignition, seat, and gas tank. My bike, 1 key fits everything. So I'm going to make sure when I'm done with this, I'm back to having this gas cap on the other bike. Unique little things. See, I could drive up to the gas station with the key to my bike. Not going to do me any good. So the first little issue I ran into, and I kind of figured this might happen, is because I had already switched these Petcocks. The Petcock on this bike that was on the Philadelphia bike was not good, and I remember switching them. So the first thing I'm going to have to do, and I just got word that we've got to go get the baby here. Believe it or not, what's happening, he's, well, we're going to see on video. He's got to get some front teeth pulled out. His teeth are coming in crooked. But anyway, what I wanted to do, I wanted to make a good point. This is a good thing. When a bike's in storage 4 or 5 years, 3 years, whatever, it's a good idea. Put some gas in, turn the Petcock on, and in this case we bypassed the vacuum and nothing came out. And then I remember, see, if I was younger, my mind would work better. Then I remember I had to switch these Petcocks, and I don't remember if that was the original problem, but I know the Petcock on this bike is good. So the first thing, and I'm not going to probably even get anything done here today, but this is the kind of thing when you're switching out the parts of the bike. Now we have originally, I wanted to switch the carburetors too once the weather warmed up. I wanted to see if those carbs, which have a jet kit in them, run any better than these carbs. And you never know. It's the kind of thing, it probably isn't going to make any difference at all. But I know what is going to make a difference. Once I get all that body work on here, I'll be really happy. But the first thing, tomorrow morning we'll start off nice and early with a fresh cup of coffee, and we'll switch to Petcocks. Those Grammy's cookies?
He doesn't really
the
like
Grammy cookies? You don't like them?
This one he doesn't like.
Okay, I'll eat them. I like everything.
Okay, pick.
What else we got in there? Ooh. Okay, now eat up, and then you're going to come help me work on motorcycles this afternoon. I know this has nothing to do with our project, but I just thought I'd share this. Karen, about 6 months ago, lost one of her bracelets. This morning I found it in the dryer lint filter. I was cleaning out the pipe. It was inside the pipe. It had fallen in. Wow! Oh, back to resolving that Petcock issue. Now before I head back out to the Petcock issue, this is really funny. You can't make this stuff up. I always like to include these little personal things on a video. Luciano calls me and he says he found the 2 parts. He's got 2 of them now, the set that we need that Kawasaki wanted 300 bucks for, 12 bucks on eBay, so he's bought them for me. And I'm going to put this project on hold. Well, we wanted to work on the Evil Twin anyway today. But that Petcock's got to be resolved. Now this day reminds me of one day that I was at Luciano's for a whole day. He had a yellow Katana and the Petcock was unreliable. And I remember it made us crazy for the whole day until we resolved it. I hope this is not going to be the day. Because if I have to, I'll switch them. I'd really like this. Step one would be very nice if I could fix this, but I got to pull it apart. First I got to get the tank in position so the fuel doesn't all come out. Pull a Petcock off and see what gives. Well, step one, I had to take out the fuel that I had put in there the day before. And good thing I have plenty of 5-gallon cans. Now luckily these, I may even have a spare one, I don't know. These usually come right off. And they don't leak when you put them back on. Oh boy, I hope that's the case today. Now the filter is, needless to say, you can blow right through the filter and it's not clogged up at all, which is exactly what I suspected. So I put that part up there. Now this, I even when I pull vacuum on it, I can't get gas to flow in either direction, and the fact that the prime is clogged up leads me to believe there's some real crap in there. So what I'm going to try to do is pull the fuel line off, let some of this carb stuff soak in there, and then blow some compressed air through there and see if I can get fuel to flow. I have to blow a little compressed air down. Put some WD-40 in there, see if that can loosen it up. Now what I'm trying to do now with this, with the compressed air, I want to fill this up. This is WD-40. I want to fill up the little, just let them soak in there. I got compressed air. And now once I can get air to blow through there on the prime circuit, then I'll do the same thing with the other circuit. I'll pull some vacuum. Whoop. Okay, we got one side of this clean. Now before I put this back, I wanted to confirm that I don't have a rip in the diaphragm, which if that were the case, you wouldn't have the vacuum, and you'd just have an on-off Petcock then. So the next step, I need to pull the parts off of this bike, basically put them on what will be the other Evil Twin, and then start assembling the bike using the tan parts. Now again, this tank is going in storage probably for the summer or for the winter, or until we do the part swap again. And actually it took us longer to resolve, it took me longer to resolve this Petcock issue than it did to swap the parts out, I'm sure. But I always like to store the tanks full of gas. Now I'm really paranoid about anything that has to do with gasoline for one simple reason. When I was in my teens, our next door neighbor's son, and I don't remember how old he was putting fuel in a lawnmower and it caught fire. I guess he poured some on the hot exhaust, I don't know. He got burned really bad. So ever since that experience, I've had a really good respect for gasoline. And any time I have now, in this case, I probably have 5 gallons in 8 bikes. I probably got 50 gallons of gas in the garage. I'm always running around checking for leaks, and if I smell gas, boy, I want to find it right away. And I remember, and I'll thank Luciano for this, again, when we bought the FZR and it had a fuel leak, he helped me resolve that fuel leak. And boy, that's when you know who your friends really are. When you have a fuel leak and it's 10 below zero. Now, we just did a valve adjustment. We just did some polishing, some engine polishing, and now it's just time. Now, I think from this point on, the twins, all they need is like swap clothes. And the original thing with this was I wanted to have like the feeling of having a new bike. And I'm guessing if it wasn't for that Petcock, I can do this whole swap in about an hour. And in good weather, probably in 45 minutes. Don't want to forget to put the right key on this bike. I don't want to go for a ride, go to unlock the gas cap, and it doesn't unlock. Now, as these parts are being swapped out, boy, I forgot how much this bike is really nice to work on. You know, some of the bikes that I've owned and do own, annoying to work on. It's like when they made this bike, they did take into account that someday you were going to have to work on it. This is pretty funny. Can't make this up. As I'm putting the parts together, I'm putting a coat of carnauba wax on them. And I go to squeeze the wax thing to get some wax. Look at what happens to wax, carnauba wax. But the thing exploded on me. Anyway, it's one I usually put this stuff in the cellar, and I forgot this. Shame on me. And it does seem funny to see them with their mix and match on here. It's like having twins and you buy them two different outfits and you're playing mix and match. But well, so far so good. But putting that carnauba wax on because these parts basically in storage. And here's the thing: maybe in the middle of the summer, I'll want to swap these out. But when I do, I want to just be able to do this. You know, I know it's under an hour job now. Now, after a nice hot cup of coffee, putting the rest of these parts on should go relatively quickly. That is a good tip if you're putting this tail section on or off a GS, and I guess other bikes too. If you take the lock out and put it in at the very end, what happens is you don't run the risks. What happens is these rubber grommets make it that you have to stretch the tails, and a lot of times that puts a lot of stress on these bolts. So a section like this that's all mounted in rubber grommets, what I like to do is just by hand tighten all the bolts and then one by one go around and tighten them with a wrench. And it is, in this case, since everything is mounted in rubber bushings, it's nice in terms of, well, the parts crack a lot less. But I really always just hand tighten all of the bolts. There's two in the back, and then go around little by little. Let the part sit. What happens, again, if you tighten one and then the other one, you stretch, shove the bolt in, you put a stress on a part, and that's when they tend to crack. Well, little by little, it's all coming together. I think the only part left now is the front fender. Actually, one of the parts that really is probably the most difficult to swap on this. It's very difficult to get your hands in. The bolts are in a very tight location. That's about the only difficult part on this whole swap. If you've ever taken one of these apart, you know to get these back two screws in, it's all, if you can get your hand in there, you have to line up a fork brace. This piece, all have to line up at the same time. It's almost worth taking the wheel off. Well, the Evil Twin project turned out to be better than I ever thought it would be. And when I think of the most difficult thing was working on that PETCOCK of all things. Without that and tightening those two back bolts on the front wheel, and believe me, it is almost worth taking the wheel out to do it. My fingers are bleeding. Anyway, this has just been an enjoyable day. I don't know how to explain it. I always, at the end of a day like this, I get really happy. I have a title for both of these bikes. Now, I had originally bought this bike with Ray. We went down to Philly and picked it up. We knew it had a bad engine, but over the years, the money I paid for it, I've got 3 times that amount in parts. And just knowing I have the spare parts, what allows me to do things like this. Now the next project, the next part of this project, not sure when I'm going to be able to do it. I want to make a set of custom wheels. But to be honest, and I didn't know how the gold wheels were going to look. I guess they don't look too bad. It's not bad at all. In fact, this is the Evil Twin project. Karen loves that name. And every time I look back at these videos, I'll remember that parts the last couple of weeks have been really cold. But this is what gets me through a long winter, just having projects. Now, the best thing of all, project like this, almost no money. And if you don't like it, you can paint the other parts over. And as the snow is melting and the sun sets in the west, this is a great project to have behind me. I am really happy the way this worked out. And this is exactly the way, except for the wheels, of course, and the polishing, the way the bike looked 35 years ago. When it left Japan, who knew it would be mine for life? And for whatever this information is worth, I noticed the original video we made of polishing this engine has over 350,000 hits. So I think what we're going to do in the future, it seems like there's a lot of people enjoy seeing the part polishing. A lot of the parts, especially the fork legs on this bike, could use a renewal. 44,000 miles. And not many of them haven't been really enjoyable.